to get someone to come in and testify that, yes, he's got weapons of mass destruction. Mr. Speaker, I bring this forward. I don't delight in challenging the administration, but I will tell you that when I go to Walter Reed, like many of my colleagues, both sides, and I never will forget a soldier 4 weeks ago. I was there with Wayne Gilchrist. Mr. Gilchrist, member of Congress, was a Vietnam veteran, and he was wounded in Vietnam and spent 4 months at Walter Reed. And we went to Walter Reed, and it was kind of nice for me. I'm not a veteran, and for me to be able to say to the wounded, this is a member of Congress who, like yourself, spent 4 months in Walter Reed. He was wounded in Vietnam fighting for his country. He's a Marine. But I never will forget the fellow Luke, and then I will yield back to the gentleman from Texas before we close. We were standing there, and Luke's mom, Luke's from Florida. I don't have permission to use his last name, so we'll not use it. Luke's mom and dad were there, and we met them and shook hands, and Luke's mom never stopped crying. And she wasn't, it was just tears. It wasn't boo-hoo, but tears. So we talked to Luke, and Luke said when we got ready to finish, and his girlfriend, by the way, who's engaged now with a ring on her hand, he introduced. Got ready to leave. He said, "Congressman, can I ask you a question?" And we said, "Certainly." He said, "Who is responsible for the Stop Loss program, where our men and women in uniform who have served their time in Iraq and Afghanistan are extended because of the fact that we are really short on replacements, to be honest about it?" And we said the Department of Defense, they have the authority. He said, "Will you do me a favor when you go back to Congress?" He said, "I'm just a sergeant." He said, "Tell them 2 or 3 things for me." We said, "Certainly." He said, "First of all, my very best friend was killed 3 months after he was extended." He said, "I was on my 3rd tour of duty, and he pulled the sheets down. His legs are gone. Both legs are gone." He said, "Congressman, my humble opinion is whether you're there 10 days or 10 years, you're not going to change the people of Iraq. It's a different culture, and it's a different country. Whether Luke will be right on that or wrong, I do not know. But why I am here tonight with my friend from Texas is that I have always regretted since I voted for the resolution, because I should have asked more questions. I should have been more inquisitive, but I was not. And I do have a pain. I have signed over 8,000 pieces of paper to families in this country. There have been over 2,500 killed. And when you factor in their extended families, we have signed over 8,000 pages. It requires us a 2-page letter. It requires my signature on 1 page. I've done that because my heart aches the fact that I did not question. And yet I want this Congress, both Democrat and Republican, as my friend from Texas said just a few minutes ago, we have an oversight responsibility to say how and why were we given information that was not credible? Why were we given intelligence that had not been verified 3 times before we sent American kids to give their life and their limb to this country? So with that, Mr. Speaker, I want to yield back to the gentleman from Texas and thank him for giving me a few minutes to share my thoughts with the American people, and to say that I will continue, Congressman Paul, to seek the truth, because this democracy will not survive unless the American people know the truth. Whether it is good or bad, we must know the truth. Thank you, sir.
I thank the gentleman, and I certainly appreciate your contribution. And I certainly appreciate your character, because you've been willing to admit something and change a position, which is sometimes very, very difficult for most people. And I have, of course, great concern, as I expressed earlier, about the war that's going on, but war in general is so dangerous to the cause of liberty, because it's in time of war that people are more willing to sacrifice their liberties. And today we're told constantly that we have to do such and such here in this country because we're in war. And yet, we haven't declared a war. The war has not been declared. We went to war without a declaration. And instead of being precise on just who the enemy is, we have a war against terrorism, and yet terrorism is nothing more than a technique. There's all kinds of terrorist acts and all kinds of different people, so you really can't have a war against terrorism. So we should be much more precise. But why I have, for as long as I can remember, been preaching the doctrine of the Founding Fathers on foreign policy is because I think it would be so much better for us. We'd fight less less wars. We would be a lot wealthier. There'd be a lot less killing, and it would be so much better for us. And that is simply a policy of non-intervention. And as I stated in my prepared remarks, this is a good moral position, it's a good constitutional position, and it's a good practical position, because wars that are fought indiscriminately and without declaration and without everybody being together and fighting for a quick victory, they linger and they just never have good resolve. And that's essentially what has happened since World War II. So I will continue to talk about non-intervention. I believe my allies, the Founding Fathers of this country and the Constitution, should be enough reason for everybody to at least give consideration to non-intervention. And I am just so convinced that our liberties would be better protected, our financial circumstances would be so much better off, and certainly we wouldn't have the burden and the heavy heart that Mr. Jones certainly bears about seeing so many young people needlessly losing their legs and dying in a battle that is so difficult to understand and has not come to resolve. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I would like to yield back the balance of my time.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January the 14th,